each league, the Rivals League and the MPL, qualifies for the World Championship invite. It's a bit of a strange situation with PBDDR in the MPL right now because he already has one locked up, which means that his qualification will be going to somebody else in one of the gauntlets. And here we go. It's time to duel.
Yep. And one thing that's also important with the invite here is whoever loses this match isn't out of Worlds, right? Still at the top of the leaderboard, still gets to battle at the set championship and a future league. But obviously, you'd love to be done here and now and lock up that slot.
So some nice mana to start here. Only 2 lands for Cifka, but a Wolf Willow Haven to line up a bit more. And the Seagate Restoration, which can be played as a land.
Yep. So that's the thing, right? You play Seagate Restoration because it gives you a little more options with the ultimatum while being a mana source when you do need it. Looking at the hands, Matt Sperling does have access to a Disdainful Stroke, but then Cifka also directs both players with a piece of interaction. But Matt Sperling has access to ultimatum. That's probably going to get taken with duress. So at that point, Cifka starts looking really comfortable because of that Omen of the Sea plus Yoron Sky Nomad being able to accelerate while Matt isn't, and the Behold the Multiverse.
Yeah, Heartless Act right here isn't quite as good. It's able to kill a Yorion once it's on the battlefield, but Yorion isn't just about being a big creature. It is also a blinking machine, able to take those permanents like Omen of the Sea, Binding of the Gods, and blink them to get a little bit of extra value.
Right. The fact is, it is good. Yorion is so good that it is worth adding 20 cards to your 1-card combo deck.
Yeah, for all that talk across the years about, making sure that your deck is as optimal and performs with the utmost efficiency, it's great to see all the pros now just like, now just throw in another 20 cards. It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, you got to have value.
Got to get that value. Sometimes variance is worth the value.
I mean, we saw that with Tainted Pact, right?
Oh, yes, we did. Playing actual pseudo singleton.
Yep. I mean,
and we see the land and ultimatum there. We're having a little bit of trouble getting the footage at the right timestamp here. So we'll be taking a little breather while we wait for that to be resolved. Hi, everybody. Happy Sunday night.
Yeah, so, there, I think the land and the ultimatum will probably end up in Cifka's hand, right? You want to keep your land drops. You want to make sure you get to cast your ultimatum down the line, so it's a good, pick it up there. Again, it's very rare that you have a straight-up winning in for the World Championship. Normally, you don't really get access to those in a Magic player's career. There's not a ton for them. But this is the case, right? You don't normally get that chance. And it's a very strange feeling, right? Because at the end of the day, whoever loses isn't still in a horrible spot. You still get to kind of calm down, kind of get another chance the next time. So it really is about just focusing and going, look, there's one match. At the end of the day, I'm going to have to focus as much as I can on this one. For Stanislav Cifka, it's also something like 1 a.m. where he lives. So you got to keep that focus. That shot of espresso you were talking about, that coffee you're taking, over there, it's late at night. And Cifka basically has to focus through these mirrors. And the way they play out, all you need to do is one wrong move. Because you cast your spell at the wrong time, your opponent counters it, they get to ultimatum themselves, the game ends on the spot. So it's not about a ton of actions here in the game. It's not really about the minutia. It's really about trying to think on a macro level, right? When do I fire off this duress to make sure that I have the maximum chance of taking a relevant card from Sperling's hand? So that's why you didn't see the duress fired off earlier. I want to keep that duress for later in the game.
Now we've got our footage back, and we are going right back to this Omen of the Sea. We saw before land and ultimatum with 4 mana already on the battlefield, a potential 5th land in hand. This would give 6 total, getting that Bark Channel Pathway. And now the ultimatum is in hand. That is a card that you do want to hold on to and then cast for those game-winning combos of cards. And here comes that duress. Now it is time to remove either the interaction, the disdainful stroke, if you think you can get to your ultimatum first, or the ultimatum if you are afraid of your opponent landing their own. This card is so strong right now, and I feel like a lot of people didn't expect it. These ultimatum cards really got underestimated when Ikoria came out because they didn't have the right cards set up yet. Emergent Ultimatum is specifically needed to get these high-powered monocolored cards printed so they could be combined for massive win conditions.
Right. But, at the end of the day, anything that says tutor and play cards for free, though, ends up seeing a lot of play. And maybe we were fools for not expecting it. And yeah, we don't need those.
We don't need that many. But I would say having a backup, not a bad plan.
Nope, no backups. We're going to trust on the first one, apparently. Oh, that's a really strong pickup.
The foretellable epiphany here.
Yeah. And, Matt is going to need this triumph to find gold. And the truth of the matter is, Cifka takes the disdainful stroke because there's not that much interaction that Matt could have. And you're not worried about the ultimatum getting fired off. Matt didn't play a Cultivate or Wolf Willow Haven or anything. So, yeah, just look at this. Pretty passive, and now Cifka knows the coast is clear. Basically, cast your Time Walk as kind of a pseudo explorer, and then cast your Emergent Ultimatum, and more likely than not, win the game on the spot.
And I believe that is indeed the right mana. Playing that Forest and Ultimatum might be resolving this turn. There is no cost-free counterspell here. There's no pact to deal with. No pact of negation or tainted pact. So we're going to be seeing Cifka firing off the first Emergent Ultimatum of the round.
Yeah. And seeing that Matt is really behind, just this value ultimatum for Tibalt, Liliana, and Time Walk is going to be more than sufficient.
I like that you did call her Liliana. Just remember, she has that type line.
Yeah.
Professor Onyx or Liliana. And Matt knows this is going to be the end of this game. There's no way coming back from that. I'm going to go into game 2 of match 1. Yeah, so this is going to be best of 3 of 3. I'm going to have to make some notes here to keep track of what their scores are across these. We may not end up going to a third best of 3, but it's all going to depend on who dominates in these first games.
Right. And speaking of dominate, Cifka basically drew the cards that are important in those game ones. The ramp spells, the selection, the disruption. Matt, no ramp, 1 permission spell that got taken by duress and just fell way behind. Now, post-board, gets to be on the play, gets the board in, Coma, Cosmos Serpent. When you're looking at these sideboards, they are reversed. It's Matt that has access to those 2 Comas. A really key card in the matchup because it's very hard to deal with, and it can just run away with the game. The fact is that the Serpents can't tap down lands, and that can prevent, essentially, your opponent from being able to cast their own key spells. Now, something actually that was kind of funny in one of the games was Coma was a liability because I think it was these 2, but I'm not 100%. But it ended up, I think, with Cifka playing Valky, getting the Coma, and then just turning the Valky into a Coma. And yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, this number of Comas here differing may end up making this game. I do love to see the big spooky snake itself, Coma, the Cosmos Serpent. Something kind of fun about the flavor of that card is that those little serpent tokens are actually still part of Coma. In the story, Coma is this giant snake that is actually going between the different realms of Kaldheim, and those little serpents are actually just manifestations of Coma that appear within the realms, whereas Coma itself, this gigantic monster, exists outside of the realms.
Yeah.
By the world tree.
It's actually a pretty good... that story actually reminds me of at least 2 or 3 others that I've played through my life in various games and books. But yeah, it's really... Yeah, this idea of the realm serpent, right, is a really common trope. It's kind of nice to see it actually exist in Magic. Duress is about a drowning pirate who's in a really bad shape, though. That's the story that's happening here.
You caught me while I was drinking with that one. Thanks. Yeah, all of the duress art is great. I like the elf that's being needled quite a bit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I love the Strixhaven Japanese art. But by the way, if you're wondering what matters in this match, let's put it clearly. What did Cifka take? A land. Duress doesn't normally take lands, but that is the drawback of these double face cards. It doesn't pop up too much, but it can happen, and it's a way for Cifka to be ahead. Is just Matt Sperling doesn't draw mana.
Now Cifka preparing for the Omen of the Sea here, getting ready and also holding up a counterspell at the same time. Just in case there happens to be something worth negating, he will be ready, but it's time for the Omen of the Sea. Scrying and drawing, and those lands are actually probably a pretty good pick here. With only one extra land in hand and some expensive spells, you need to have at least 4 mana for Binding or for Pelucranos.
Right, and Cifka's hand is actually pretty loaded. You get access to 2 disruption spells in Negate and Disdainful Stroke to protect yourself, so you're not in a rush. You can take your time. You have Binding the Old Gods if Matt Sperling tries to tap out for something like an Elder Gargaroth or that Pelucranos Unchained that you see. So Cifka is actually in pretty reasonable shape here. And you keep the lands because that's one thing that could go wrong, right? Like you just don't draw into your 5th and 6th mana, and then you don't get to advance your game plan, and Sperling can pounce on that.
And I have to be very careful about landing the pathway there. You want to make sure that you're not playing out that red mana unless you absolutely need to for a Tybalt because of the mana requirements of the ultimatum. Oh, and there's a Professor Onyx in hand.
Right. And Professor Onyx or Liliana is just a really good value play. You don't need ultimatum for that card to be good. Just having it in play, it replaces itself, is already decent enough. And it kind of poses a question to your opponent. Do you have something to deal with this? Do you have a Binding the Old Gods? Because if you don't, you're going to be in horrible shape.
Yeah, Onyx ends up doing the gain and drain off that Magecraft passive, but also just giving card advantage and having an edict-like effect. I believe she forces you to sacrifice your most expensive creature.
Yeah. The creature with the greatest power. But here, Matt Sperling, unfortunately, not drawing a land. A land would have been exceptional here, allowing essentially something like a Quandrix Cultivator to come down. That sets up beautifully for the Yorion Sky Nomad. Wolfwillow Haven, though, I mean, Cifka can interact with that with Negate, had the option next turn to, if you don't choose to negate, to just Binding the Old Gods. It's not really what Matt wanted. And you see kind of that payoff of duressing the land here, penning out. If that, if you had taken something else like a Binding the Old Gods, that wouldn't have done anything. But the fact is, you took it, and now Matt Sperling can't play Quandrix Cultivator. And that puts Cifka really ahead in this game.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of cultivates and similar countered this weekend as well, because if your opponent can't get their mana, they can't accelerate to their win conditions. We're going to see a 5th land coming down for Cifka here, which does open up the possibility of playing Yorion. And already there's enough mana for Pelucranos Unchained. That thing can end the game if left unchecked.
Right. I mean, a 6/6 for 4 mana is a really exceptional threat. But you're correct. The Yorion does seem relatively reasonable here. You get to draw a card down the line. I like the Pelucranos, though, for the threat here. It is close, though, right? Because the Yorion was technically the most mana expensive card, but you'd have to play the untapped land. And then next turn, you're playing the tapped land anyways. You have a bunch of 4-drop spells and 2-drop ones. So it doesn't even allow you to do more spells. So by playing Pelucranos, next turn, you get to have Binding the Old Gods plus Stroke, or to just straight up play Professor Onyx.
And now I'm going to live as though this is a Timmy game, and Pelucranos is the 6/6 beater who's coming at the face. And we see an oops from Matt Sperling. Matt, why you doing this? Matt, why you be oopsing over here? I think he's saying, I made a mistake by not drawing lands.
Yeah, it was definitely a mistake not to draw that Ketria Triome rather than the Forest earlier in the game. Absolute error from Matt Sperling. No, I mean, come on. There's not much that can be done. It's more for the humor, right, of, I need a 4th land. I draw this Wolfwillow Haven. I got countered. I drew this tap land. Wonderful.
And there's no permanence for that Binding to destroy, but it is going to turn into ramp. If Cifka wants to play one here, it's still a good way to line up the mana for ultimatum.
Yep, this is basically a slow mana acceleration. The truth is, Cifka doesn't know Sperling's hand. There's one, apart from one card. You know, like 5 of the cards, but not the last one. And at this point, Cifka's just going like, how could I lose? I'm really far ahead. So the way that I lose is that I try to play something like this Professor Onyx. It gets countered, and Sperling gets to go over the top. So, you know what? I'm just going to play it slowly. I have a 6/6 in play. It's going to get the job done. It doesn't die to Heartless Act. So, yeah, we'll just keep going with Polukranos Unchained.
Yep, and amazingly, Cifka able to hold up enough mana for the Disdainful Stroke here, and then get repeated value out of that binding. So Matt Sperling knows that the Yorion is in hand. They both have their Yorions in hand, which means that any permanent that comes down here, it will make an impact if it has something when it enters the battlefield, like the Cultivator, like Binding. But if Yorion comes down, that can just be destroyed. Any permanent can just be destroyed. There's also a Disdainful Stroke, but it's always nice to hold those for the bigger threats.
By the way, you saw there Cifka take a long time before playing the land, as we see the Stroke take the Binding the Old Gods, and play it as a blue source. That it might seem counterintuitive, right? Because the third blue source is bad for Emergent Ultimatum, rather than the extra green source. That's done because the original plan probably was, if I draw an untapped land, I get to play Yorion and have my untapped blue source in order to play this Disdainful Stroke. So that's why you saw it is Cifka going, you know what, at the end of the day, I'm probably not going to cast Ultimatum right away. And that way I get to make sure I keep up this Disdainful Stroke no matter what. So that's kind of what you saw and the reason for that. With a Ketra Triome here, Yorion looks a lot less tempting, even though you'd get that extra value from Binding the Old Gods. You can play this Professor Onyx, and 100% it will resolve. Whereas if you play Yorion Sky Nomad, might run into Mystical Dispute, so that's the consideration. Yorion is more powerful, I believe, in this spot, but you could run into Mystical Dispute, and that does make it a lot less attractive.
Yeah, I do like running Onyx out here, especially with that Cultivate in hand, able to follow up. The Cultivate could be cast here to line up for that Ultimatum anyway, but Onyx able to get this damage dealt. There are those Binding the Old Gods, which means that she won't live for long. But using your removal on the Planeswalker instead of the 6/6 that's hitting your face was a rough spot to be in. And Matt Sperling again with the emoting saying, "Your go, Cifka. We can't wait all day."
So here should get the green source, since you're trying. I mean, you have that extra blue source already, and you want to cast your Ultimatum. I guess you already have the triple green source red from this Ketra Triome, so get even more blue mana. If you're wondering what matters post-board, it really is all about that interaction.
So now, Matt, getting a land. We've got that Fabled Passage coming down and a Binding the Old Gods. You're only going to survive 2 more hits from a Polukranos. You just have to hope that your opponent doesn't have it, does not have a Emergent Ultimatum to follow up with.
Yeah. And here, Matt going for Binding the Old Gods rather than Alrund's Epiphany without Emergent Ultimatum in hand or the 7th land. You just don't get the payoff from the Epiphany that you would. So that's why I believe you don't see it fired off. It's too easy for it to be Mystical Disputed. It's possible for the Binding the Old Gods, but one of the ways that Matt can really reverse this game is to get a well-timed Alrund's Epiphany at some point.
Taking extra turns, a very fine road to recovery. And there's only 2 mana being held up. Matt Sperling bluffing having a Disdainful Stroke here.
Yeah. And the fact that Cifka drew a land that comes into play tapped might make Cifka wait a turn because, right, you can't do anything about Stroke, but you can not care about Mystical Dispute. So, yeah, that's why you're not seeing Emergent Ultimatum this turn is Cifka wants to wait to see if you're going to top deck a discard spell or at least next turn you don't run into Dispute, the Yorion here giving some extra value.
Yep, so Yorion going to blink the Omen, getting a scry and a draw. There's Wolf Willowhaven and Heartless Act. Looks like taking the Heartless Act.
The logic is being able to answer the Yorion if Matt plays it. Cifka knows about it. It makes sense to play it this turn because you get to reset the Binding the Old Gods. So that's why you take the Heartless Act here. Although, to be fair, it's not like the Yorion does a ton in play since Cifka's Yorion is going to go away. It might also be a consideration. Cifka does not have a counter spell for Emergent Ultimatum, and Matt does have close to Ultimatum mana, so Heartless Act can kill something like a Vorinclex. And if Matt Sperling goes for the traditional Time Walk, Vorinclex, and Cura Best of Sea God, you give the Aldrin's Epiphany and the Vorinclex, and then you just Heartless Act the Vorinclex, and you're not worried.
So there comes the Polo-Kronos, and Heartless Act doesn't really do that well against it. It can remove some of those +1/+1 counters, but that does not kill the Hydra.
Well, those are two extremely good cards for Stanislav Cifka.
That helps you protect the ultimatum. I think he's checking right now. Do I have 3 black mana? Would I be able to play that and still cast the ultimatum after?
Yeah, I believe there's a bunch of green-black duels, so we should be fine. But yeah, these two cards, perfect, because now you get to fire off the Duress. Matt Sperling's going to let that resolve because there's no other choice, and then Cifka is going to see, oh, the coast is clear, let's do this. Actually, with Sperling at 8, yeah, good. Fights off this Yorion now to make sure, because otherwise... Yeah, because otherwise Professor Onyx plus Duress and Heartless Act would have closed up the game.
And now there is no mana open. No worry of a counterspell. But it's good to be proactive and check your opponent's hand. Make them discard Binding the Old Gods. No scary removal here.
Yep. And now probably casting the Ultimatum. It does seem like the most powerful option available. I'd be surprised to see Professor Onyx. I mean, the coast is clear. The Binding the Old Gods is going to go away, so Yorion Sky Nomad's not that great. It does work with Quandrix Cultivator. Cifka really at this moment just trying to think, how can I lose this game? And if I cast Emergent Ultimatum, what am I even getting? So this is more Cifka kind of going through the lines, but make no mistake, Cifka is definitely ahead in this spot.
Yeah, and there is an Aldrin's Epiphany at the ready for Matt Sperling. But of course, it's time for the ultimatum, which may find its own Aldrin's Epiphany. Emergent Ultimatum, giving the choice between any 3 mono-colored spells in the deck, and then the opponent chooses 1 to put back into the library.
So if you give Vorinclex plus the Aldrin's Epiphany, that would be lethal, I believe, with Matt at 8. So at that point, you kind of have to give Tybalt and Aldrin's Epiphany, which sounds horrible.
And Matt knows he is done for. And that means that the first game goes to Cifka. So again, this is a best of 3 of 3. So Cifka is up 1, but there could be 2 full more rounds to go.
Right here, it's best of 3 matches, right? So Cifka takes down the first match, basically has to take out one of the next 2 matches in this Sultai Ultimatum mirror. If I was going to summarize the games, it really came down to Cifka having better options to ramp, to interaction, and that's really going to lock up the game, right? Matt was never really in it as a result. But yeah, I mean, we're going to see how it shakes up. I mean, in these mirror matches, one player that ramps up can really take over. We didn't see Koma make an appearance, and that's going to be a really important card maybe in the next match.
Yep, turns out getting your 4th land when your hand is full of 4-cost cards is pretty important. We'll be taking a quick break and then coming back soon with round 2.
And welcome back to coverage here. We've got a little bit of extra playoff action for you here. We saw in the best 2 to 3 matches, the first one going to Stanislav Cifka. That means that he's on the cusp of securing that seat at Worlds. He simply needs to win either this match, or if he can't do that, the final match, the third and deciding one, and he will take that seat from Sperling. Now, the kind of cool part is that whoever it is that doesn't make it this time is still in an okay spot because they get to play in the last league weekend and still, have another shot at it. But boy, how nice would it be to just wrap that thing up right here, right now, and call it good?
That's the goal, right? If you can get things done ahead of time, you would love to do so. And for Cifka, obviously ahead of match right now in best out of 3 matches in standard, feeling, I imagine, pretty good about himself. However, I will note that this mirror, it can be extremely swingy. Ultimately, both players are trying to resolve one big spell. So it's not like this, terribly straightforward thing. Both decks are 80 cards. There's some variance in the draws. But we're going to see how it goes. Thus far, Cifka ahead 1-0. Sperling could very easily tie this up.
That's right. Let's take a quick look at the decks before we head into the match here. Once again, this is the Sultai Ultimatum mirror match between these two players, with Cifka having picked up the first game. As Cedric described, you can do a whole lot of value generation, jockeying for position, only to have it all evaporate if you leave the shields down and your opponent resolves the ultimatum. But these can be grindy as well. And one of the things to keep a close eye on, which we saw happen in the first match, was lands. Simply lands. Just getting the colors and amount of mana underneath you to be able to set up what you want to set up ends up being a key decider. And all the pressure now on Matt Sperling. He got a second lease on life here. He lost his last round, had to sweat it out watching Stanislav Cifka versus Luis, who played a close 3-game match with Luis, ultimately coming out the victor there, forcing this. But now Matt's once again up against it. But the good news for him, he carries his fate in his own hands. He doesn't have to rely on his teammates and friends to beat Cifka anymore. He gets to try to do it himself. And he does have a steep hill to climb, though. He's going to have to win back-to-back matches against the PT champ, Stanislav Cifka. It's not going to be easy for Sperling, but it all starts here. Let's get underway with our two players. Looks like they both kept 7s. Right where you want to be.
All right, away we do go. I mean, a lot of cultivates over there for Sperling. No real big payoff spell, but lands are not going to be an issue here for Matt.
Yeah, boy, he listened to what I just said, didn't he? He's got Quandrix, Cultivator, and Triple Cultivate. Hey! There's an Immersion Ultimatum.
There it is. There's your namesake card from your deck.
Easy game.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Also interesting that while Sperling's going to be able to chain together cultivators or cultivates as he sees fit, we do see Wolf Haven, the 2 mana ramp spell here for Cifka, something that Sperling did not have an answer to.
Well, looks like here's cultivate number 1 for Sperling. Well, oddly enough, this game could be so easy for Matt, right? Because it could just be, cultivate, boom, see you later. It can be that simple. If Cifka doesn't draw anything irrelevant, it could just be that easy. So right now it's Heartless Axe. That's not of anything of consequence. So if you're Cifka, you're looking for discard, you're looking for a counterspell, and Marshall, thus far, he doesn't have either.
No, and you got to like this curve here from Cifka, too. I mean, he gets to go 2-drop ramp into 3-drop ramp. He's turboing out as well, but that's kind of not what he needs at this particular juncture, as right now Matt Sperling's the one who's slated to fire off the ultimatum first, given that, well, he has one in his hand.
Yep. Another land, completely rel. A little cultivate party. I guess we can go Quandrix here, because Quandrix, the land of... Sperling's doing a little bit of math, I think, in his head. Just wants to make sure that, yes, I'll be able to cast Emergent Ultimatum next turn as long as the lands line up, because you got to make sure that happens too, Marshall. You don't want to, make some sort of mistake and not have triple green, double blue, double black. So make sure you got that all lined up.
Another land off the top here for Sperling. He is going to carefully plan out his turns for the rest here. He has no wiggle room. Yeah, looks like he's decided on Cultivate. Didn't have quite enough to play a Cultivator into a Cultivate. He was close, only one off, but it's a big difference. So he's going to go with just Cultivate again.
Green, green, blue, blue. Yeah, clear for takeoff. It all looks good.
Okay, back over to Stan, who finds, okay, not what he needed at the moment. The question is, with just one Emergent Ultimatum in hand for Sperling, does it just jump onto the stack? Like, does he care?
I mean, it's easy for me to say yes because he doesn't have anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's
Like,
no
what else are
alternate
you
thing
going to
do?
do?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So for me,
this
I just
is also a game one, so, less interaction.
Yeah, I just kind of look at it and I just go, I ain't doing anything else. So, it's pretty easy. I think he can get in his own head and say, I'm not going to, like, if I cast this and it gets countered, then Stan has one, then I just immediately lose. But, like, his hand is also incredibly soft right now, so that if Cifka does have an Emergent Ultimatum of his own, he can't do anything. So,
this is kind of funny.
That
he
leads
drew
me
Elspeth's Nightmare. Is this going to nudge him off course? Because if he just goes for the ultimatum, he's very likely to just win here.
Yeah. My decision-making process here, and it's easy again for me to say because I have perfect info, is I just look at this and I just go, my hand stinks. Like, I don't have permission. I could act like I have permission, but I don't have permission. So Cifka is just like, screw it, I'm letting it rip. I'm dead. And so because I don't have anything, and I'm also kind of thinking, what did Cifka just foretell? There's a part of me that just goes, whatever, here I go. But I understand. I totally understand if Matt doesn't cast it.
Boy, it's tough because the Elspeth's Nightmare gives you a little bit of hope here that you could play it and then have its second chapter go and then clear the way. But you are facing down a player who already has 6 mana sources and could easily just go land Ultimatum. You're really kind of forced to do it here.
It's an interesting spot here because there's so much on the line here for Matt that it's the thing that you don't want to be wrong about. But at the same time, I believe that he is left with no decision here if he just has to jam this and hope that Cifka does not find a way to stop this.
Yeah,
those are.
And Cifka's going to dig. He's going to play Behold the Multiverse in response. Sperling says, okay, bottom. Is there anything that he can find to interact? No. And this Emergent Ultimatum is going to resolve here for Matt Sperling. And again, the correlation between being the first one to resolve Ultimatum and winning the game is extraordinarily high. This is a huge deal for Matt. Boy, what an inflection point for this first game, too. Because, like you said, I mean, there's every chance that you go Emergent Ultimatum and they go, yeah, I have the one interactive thing that I needed to have, and then they just untap, play their own, and then the game's over.
Entirely possible. Now, Matt's cards that he's finding are very interesting here. Seagate Restoration.
Look at that.
Alrund's Epiphany. Palaka Predation.
He's kind of saying, look, you're either going to give me a bunch of cards in extra turns and you get to protect your own ultimatum, or I'm going to take your ultimatum.
Yeah.
Doesn't have one.
Mm-hmm.
Still, Matt has 5 cards in hand. So if he gets the Seagate Restoration here, he's going to get hooked up. So it's going to be Epiphany and Palaka Predation here. And Sperling's going to get the good/bad news. He didn't go for the I win the game immediately play. Right? If he would have gone for the most powerful options, it would have actually put him in a better spot as it stands. But this middle ground protects him from Ultimatum. And of course, he gets another turn here as well.
Yeah, it protects him from Ultimatum, but it's not the most exciting of turns, right? You just resolved a big spell. And he didn't really do all that much, right? That was a 7 mana, I'm going to call it Duress Time Walk.
Mm-hmm. You get a couple of birds. Can I interest you in some birds?
Which is fine, but when I think of Emergent Ultimatum, I think, okay, that's resolved. The game is as close to over as possible. Now, you are in the mirror. I think a lot of the times in the mirror, the second person that resolves the ultimatum does better than the first person that resolves the ultimatum. That happens occasionally. I don't want to say frequently, but I would say that's occasional. It felt a little weak, but that's not a critique on Matt. It's a critique on the events that happened.
That was a weak ultimatum. And he doesn't have a great follow-up here. Like, you can go Quandrix Cultivator into Binding or into Cultivate. Oh, okay, you can play Elspeth's Nightmare just to get it down to get the duress for next turn. But, like, there is a window that is open now. If Cifka can rip an ultimatum here, he could jump right back into the lead here. Extinction Event.
Not the best draw in the world.
And frankly, look at what Sperling's got going on. Okay, Yorian's pretty good Magic card, right? He's got some stuff, but he needs cards. Like, he needs a way to pull ahead here.
Yeah.
I said the correlation was high. I did not say it was 100%. And if Cifka can get a little lucky here, he may be able to steal this game from a player who resolved an ultimatum. It doesn't happen every time.
I guess we're just it's a weird thing to say, Marshall. It's like I think Matt's best draw is just like another ultimatum.
Yeah.
which just it just leads me to go like, but we already resolved one.
Right.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's Elspeth's Nightmare. That can take away something here. Extinction Event or Heartless Act. But in the meantime, Sperling draws a land for the turn. He can generate at least a little bit of value off of Yorian. Just get a clock going. He can Cultivator plus another 4-drop. He has reasonable options, but they're just not slam the door on the game type options.
All right, where do we want to start? I guess Binding killing Wolf Willowhaven isn't the worst thing to do. Not your favorite target for that card. It's got a higher ceiling. It's got a higher ceiling than that, but it's not nothing.
Right.
Ooh, I like it. Let's get the easy part out of the way. There it is, Sperling. There you go.
He did all the jockeying.
Huge fan of that.
This attack. All right, here comes the Quandrix Cultivator. This will still allow him to have, he can cast Yorian, Binding, or Cultivate after this. Cultivator into Yorian's kind of cool. Like, you reset the Elspeth's Nightmare, you get another land off the Cultivator. Again, these are like nice value plays. It also would put 7 power on the battlefield and be fairly significant.
Yeah, that'll force the hand of the Extinction Event or the Heartless Act. So the it's all. I mean, words are hard. To credit for Cifka, I'm done. Go ahead. I'm done.
Well, the thing is, Cedric's a finely tuned race car, right?
That's right.
Tunes his engine for the finish line, and then when the finish line gets moved,
yeah, we're way past my way past me being able to do this anymore. What I was gonna say is that you get the Heartless Act of Urian and then Extinction Event away evens and kill everything. So like while there's a lot of power on the battlefield and Urian's gonna do a little bit of blinking and stuff, it's all just kind of right now.
It really is. These aren't the things that generally matter in a matchup like this. It is finding ultimatum that matters. And while this is a decent amount of value for Sperling, he's not actually digging into his library and finding action. Stan decided to cycle a Triumph, didn't find anything. See, that's what needs to show up here for our players, or cards like Omen of the Sea. Yeah. That they can use to dig and try to actually find an ultimatum. Because, I mean, right now, both players have shields down. Like, somebody draws an ultimatum, it's resolving. Duress and Ketria Triumph.
I would be surprised if he cares about Duress. Well, okay, that's not technically true. So what I was going to say was I'd be surprised if he cares about Duress because like Duress doesn't do anything to solve the ultimatum problem. And if Sperling had an ultimatum, he would have cast it by now. But you would take a Duress here if you care about getting information on what's going on in your opponent's hand, or you care about, I think my opponent has a counterspell in their hand for the ultimatum that I may draw, or the Tibalt Cosmic Imposter that I could potentially cast. So I'd like to maybe clear the way for either one of those big spells. So I can understand taking this duress and taking the binding.
Okay, he takes the binding away. Again, these aren't the type of turns that are going to swing the match. Though, again, there's questions being asked and answered here for sure. Like, Stan's probably going to have to look at that extinction event. He's going to have to look at the Heartless Act and decide, okay, well, how much damage am I willing to take? How does this board actually look?
Yeah, I mean, extinction event seems pretty, I kind of like just using all your mana doing that this turn.
Mm-hmm.
Clean it all up. That's the entire turn, and mosey on about. I think that's okay.
Yeah, there's an argument for land Heartless Act, sack the Omen.
Sure.
Right, like that also would use up even one extra mana and get you closer. But he just says, let's just get all these things off the battlefield. Yeah, you have a Yorion. I'm not dying to that for a while. Ooh, disdainful stroke for Sperling. So now Cifka is going to think, the way's probably clear. I should be good to go, right? If he rips an ultimatum, and he would be incorrect. The good news, though, for Cifka is that while that is a nice little defensive card, Sperling still hasn't found any way to actually capitalize and win the game. Yeah,
that was a nice draw there for Sperling. Now, he is going to be forced to use the disdainful stroke on something here in the short term. So this is kind of an interesting decision here that Matt's got to go through, which is, okay, so if my opponent casts Yorion, and that's blinking of
stroke,
right? That's blinking Omen of the Sea. That's
and
enough
putting
for me
out
to
a blocker.
Care.
Yeah, I think
that's enough for me to care about it.
Totally.
Instead of waiting for ultimatum to arrive, you just say, you know what? This is taken care of. I can keep attacking. You don't get to see more cards with Omen. Sure, you can sacrifice your Omen and Scry too, but you don't get the value from the blink of that. So, okay, I'll counter it.
Yeah, it's effectively a 2-for-1 for Sperling, and also keeps what has become his primary game plan online. The Heartless Act got taken away, and that means that the Yorion in 3 short turns could have this game over, especially if Matt continues to brick, which he just did again. A weird run out here where, you're kind of waiting for one of these players to draw card draw into ultimatum into, okay, now I win the game and it's not remotely close. That hasn't been how this one's played out. This Yorion is actually fairly threatening at this point.
Yeah,
just needs there's any red mana insight here for Cifka for the other side of Valky there. This is big here. If he can find an ultimatum with these scries, look at that. Land goes to the bottom.
Hey, 80 cards, man.
Yeah,
80
true.
cards.
See what he rips here. Oh, it's a Zagoth Triumph, not what he wanted to see.
That's a redraw.
Indeed. Okay.
Now, what's interesting about this, that's a good draw.
That's a really nice rip.
I was going to say, what's interesting about cycling there is if you draw a Merchant Ultimatum, you can't cast it, and then Matt could peel a discard spell and get you. But you could draw something like Extinction Event here and take care of Big Bird. And we play on.
This has stayed interesting. Also, Stan deciding to keep the Fabled Passage in hand, and for the love of all things, Sperling just cannot find action. Sure, it's a spell, but certainly isn't what he's hoping for here.
I'm thinking, if I'm Sperling I'm like, look, this is the most expensive 2/2 of all time.
Full 7 mana 2/2.
But it's better than nothing, baby. I don't know how you rank that unlimited resources, the old 7 mana 2/2, but it's better than nothing.
That's an F.
Okay.
Temple puts another one on the bottom, and once again, our players just don't have anything to do. I'm assuming that Sperling's out of basics to get with Cultivate and with Fabled Passage. Because remember, he had a triple Cultivate opener.
Twitch chat, Eduardo letting us know that it's actually a 6 mana 2/2 since it pays for itself.
Oh, thank you, Eduardo. Thank you, Eduardo.
Still an F.
He gave us the winky face, too. He knows what he's doing. All right, Pelucranos Unchained now for Sperling. He finally finds something huge to cast. Nice big 6/6 that can start putting a real major clock here on Stanislav's life total and increase the pressure.
Looks like Cifka's one red source is a red-black pathway, so no basic mountain to Fabled Passage for to play Tibalt.
Okay.
in its Planeswalker form. So you see Polukranos take care of that. I mean, we're facing lethal.
Lukranos fight. And that chump block there from Stanislav, or that fight, I should say, from Sperling on the 2/2 actually means that this is a bigger Polukranos. Now, I don't know if Stanislav actually wants to put Sperling's Polukranos in the graveyard, because we know how that goes, and he certainly has enough stuff to bring it back at this point, right? 12/12, slightly bigger.
Yeah, big. I call that big.
I wonder if Sperling just wants it to be in the yard. In fact,
maybe
he just picks a fight
do it
with a bigger
himself.
kid.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Let's see what Sperling does.
He says, "I'll take care of this."
Is he gonna punch the Polukranos here with his own? He is. Look at this.
Come and get it.
Picking on the big kid, but this is gonna be a way for Sperling to get out of the way. Oh, and he find binding the old gods as well. That could be responsible for damage right now. On top of it, it's going to offer the trade.
Looks like Sperling has 8 cards in his graveyard. Okay, this gets interesting now.
He can put Fabled Passage in his yard. I believe he's out of basics, but he could just increase his library or his graveyard count by 1.
The escape on this thing is 6 other cards.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to work for it a little bit.
You do. And it does mean you don't get to do it time after time, but still, maybe one time's enough here. Mystical Dispute looking absolutely miserable as Sperling has more than enough lands.
I know that you spoke about Cultivate and lack of cards to find with that, we believe. It is a card that you can cast and put in your graveyard.
True.
If you do want to escape
with Fabled Passage, you can do it with Cultivate.
Yeah, it's not the sexiest play in the world, but it's a play nonetheless.
Indeed. Okay, here we go. Polukranos Unchained on the stack, but as we mentioned, man has plenty of mana to pay for a potential Mystical Dispute. And I guess Stan decided, well, this is the best it's going to be. So I'll just fire it off.
Interesting. So Stan has 5 cards in his graveyard, so this is card 6.
Oh, that's funny.
And then Fabled Passage is card 7, which are these 6 other cards for Polukranos Unchained.
This is kind of embarrassing. The players are just having to burn cards just to fill up their yard.
Hey, whatever it takes, huh?
And there's another land off the top.
Oh, we're going to play Valky. Okay.
No, Valky's not going to see anything fun on the other side. In fact, it's going to see its doom with binding the old gods over there.
Oops has been announced. Is that it? That appears to
he
be
didn't
it.
have
Okay.
anything, and Matt picks up first game. Boy, he's got to be thrilled with that outcome, Cedric. It did not. I mean, remember, things went beautifully to start, but he had that relatively anemic ultimatum that ultimately didn't get him ahead enough to win or even close. And then it didn't go very well for him. But luckily, the same thing can be said for Stanislav Cifka, as neither were able to put that huge spell on the stack to really seal the deal in the mid to late game. And ultimately, bingo. Matt Sperling picks up game number 1 with a pump.
Yeah, people noting in the chat that's one of the weirdest Sultai ultimatum mirrors they've ever seen, and I'm right there with you. We had we had an ultimatum result very early that effectively, being polite, did nothing. I mean, it obviously did a little more than nothing, but it sure felt like it did nothing, and the game dragged on for a while, and it was Polukranos that got the job done, of all things. So, okay.
Yeah, we'll take it. Also, it played out in an interesting way because, as you mentioned, strange for the mirror to play out in that particular way. But also, it was a mirror. They both did very similar things all game. The only difference is that Sperling actually resolved an ultimatum, but you wouldn't know it the way the game played out.
That was a weird one.
Very strange.
That was a weird one.
Yeah, I think that Cifka didn't have enough mana there to escape his own Polukranos and fight the other. And he knew about binding in hand, so he just scooped him up. Okay, game number 2 incoming. Stanislav Cifka is up a match, but he's down a game here as Sperling fights to try to even things up. Let's see what happens.
Both players with what I would consider to be reasonable opening hands. So we keep, and we play.
Yeah, Sperling's looks quite strong here. He has land into Haven, and then even if he misses, he can cultivate. Down on the bottom, no ramp here to speak of for Cifka. He did technically just draw a ramp spell, but it's not the kind that he needs at this moment. It looks like he's thinking about maybe just running Valky out there.
Hey, get a little look, get some beatdowns in, sure.
Would it hit anything? No, right?
Nah, just get you some
nothing.
info.
Boy, that would be bad. If he misses and just has a 2-1 for his troubles, like you can't win that fight.
Oh, so we're just gonna come in here late in the day and slander 2-mana 2/1s. I see. Okay. Okay, cool. That's cool.
Yes, we are.
Okay. So you're
happening right now.
So you're anti beatdowns. Okay.
Well, I want to know if Cifka's anti beatdown or not. He's playing a swamp. All right, he's just gonna pass.
Boo.
Both
Boo
him
to
and I are
Cifka,
anti beatdown. That's 2 votes to 1 so far. All right, so no land. It was Plukranos off the top of the library there for Sperling, but he does get to go for Wolf Willow Haven, and that should protect him and give him an opportunity to cast Cultivate, regardless of whether he hits a land or not. Land drop's not a problem for Cifka, but his hand just looks slow here.
Yeah, it's a little slow and anemic. I kind of like this matchup, honestly. It's just, yeah, it's not like a race or anything. You know, like these 2 ramp decks that have controlling elements to them, both proactive and reactive, just going to add Yuri into the hand. That's it. So I mean, not a lot going on here for either player.
That was a huge sigh of relief for Sperling. So Cifka decided just to put Yorian into hand. He could have left up Mystical Dispute. And not that I'm saying he should have, but had he done so and countered the Cultivate, Matt missed another land draw here, and he would have had no land drop for the turn. Now he gets to get 2 lands on the battlefield this turn instead and leave up Cling to Dust. That was huge. You know, that when Sperling saw that Yorian jump into hand, he must have thought, oh, thank God. Because if this didn't go the way it did, he could be way behind on mana, and that's a place to lose the game real quick.
Yeah, could go off the rails really, really fast.
Mm-hmm. Now things get kind of interesting. We finally hit the 4-mana slot, so Cifka could fire off Binding on the Wolf Willow Haven, or even just slam Asika's Chariot and start beating down.
Now here we go. So
you know what you want to happen.
Not in favor of 2-mana 2/1, but 4-mana 2/2/2s. Talk to me.
I'm in. I'm in for this one. Here's the Cling to Dust to draw a card now for Sperling, who does find a land, but is going to be facing a clock at this point, so he's going to need to get things rolling on his side. He finds his own copy of Valky, but he also had Plukranos from a couple of turns ago, and lots of good options now for Sperling.
Yeah, again, one of the things that continues to loom over this game, though neither player has it in their hand right now, it's just the thought of Emergent Ultimatum resolving. Again, neither player has it, but you see that Cifka has Mystical Dispute in hand, so he's relatively ready for it. Sperling's hand is pretty varied in what it can do right now, but he also doesn't have Emergent Ultimatum. So it always going to loom large in these games that we play, but both of these players, I think, are smart enough to know that, hey, a lot of the time it doesn't matter. You just hope your opponent doesn't have it, and you just keep moving forward accordingly. So it'll be curious that once the player gets closer to 7 mana, how the game will be played, but we're not there yet.
All right, Cadillac versus the Plukranos here. What is going to happen? Currently speaking, that Binding looks pretty tempting here. You know how it is. The Asika's Chariot can really get out of hand quickly if you get to, maybe attack twice, right? Just get a couple of copies. All of a sudden, the clock is really, really fast. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see Heartless Act or something along those lines.
Yeah.
From Sperling.
Yeah.
If Binding's the play here from Cifka, it is.
Yeah, I was gonna say it feels like Binding's the play. Binding with Dispute up. So you play this, you get this thing out of here. And I think I can't imagine that okay, I'm just gonna shut my mouth.
Well, he can just hit the Chariot, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why I was like a little surprised to see that baby get fired up.
Is he going to let it attack is the question. I mean, you just snap it off.
Yeah, no, you snap it off before. Yeah, we're in combat before attackers. Get that thing out of here.
So no damage here. Does leave the 2 cats behind and a binding on the battlefield, but Sperling has to be happy with the way that went.
Looks like Sperling does have Omen of the Sea in his hand, too, as far as manipulation is concerned. So here we go.
He does, yeah.
And there's one of them.
Right, and it is not uncommon, by the way, to see binding hit another binding on the other side before the ramp element can come in. That does happen in the matchup. Block of Predation on top, and he's going to leave Kioribes the Sea God down at the bottom of the library. That's something he may want to search up with an ultimatum, but doesn't want in his hand. And there we go, binding. And it does, in fact, take out the opposing binding, the old gods.
Okay. Cifka with only 5 mana, so if you're doing the count, you're thinking, okay, what's it look like if how close is he to 7? Now he's 1 away. Duress isn't a bad find. I'd be shocked if he doesn't keep that on top. But he's a mana away from casting Emergent Ultimatum, assuming the mana cooperates, a mana away from casting hard casting. All runs Epiphany, but he could forecast that now and still have access to Mystical Dispute. So a lot of lines of play here.
Yeah, he's going to want to keep that Mystical Dispute available if possible, so perhaps. Oh, this is interesting. If he goes for Valky here, he will know what's up in Sperling's hand.
That's true. Little info.
And that could open the door for him to say, do the foretell that you mentioned or something along those lines. So let's see. It's Valky taking Valky. And he sees the relatively good news that there's not a ton in hand. Pretty incentivized to get that Alrund's Epiphany into foretell, though, as the Block of Predation could take it away anyway. Let's see if he does it. He does.
Interesting thing to note here, Marshall, if you take a look at Cifka's lands, there are 3 blue sources on the battlefield right now, like flat-only blue sources. And given that ultimatum costs green, 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 blue, blue, black, black, that means that ultimatum can't come next turn at all. Now, naturally, we can all see Cifka's hand, and we know that there is no ultimatum. The next land that enters the next land that would enter the battlefield enters the battlefield tapped in Temple of Malady. So Sperling now has that information that we all have. And if I'm Matt, I think I'm feeling all right.
Yeah, this feels okay. He gets to resolve Block of Predation, and he can take either of the 2 spells away. He's going to take away the more efficient answer card here with Mystical Dispute, leaving Yorion in hand.
Clearly doesn't care about Big Bird. You see Shark Typhoon and Omen left over? Okay.
That's right, and he has a Pelucranos looming in the yard. Now, he doesn't have enough cards in there to escape yet, but it is a thing.
I like this. Get the information before you duress. Ooh, find a copy of Shark Typhoon. Okay.
Also interesting from Matt's perspective, because if duress goes on the stack, Matt can more or less set it up so that he doesn't get hit by it. He can Omen of the Sea, scry Shark Typhoon into something that doesn't get hit potentially.
Yep.
But as it stands, both of his cards are actually eligible. I do wonder, if Matt's going to be bummed, though, if the best he gets is just to basically cycle the Shark Typhoon rather than, getting a chance to actually make it into a threat on the battlefield. Because he is facing down 6 power now. It's, he would love to have a 3/3.
Yeah, it's enough power that you actually have to start caring.
Mm-hmm. Especially now that Alrund's Epiphany is going to go on the stack. Now, does Matt have to respond? No, he's just going to let this go. It's a lot of damage.
Yeah, no, it is. This actually starts to matter. And this doesn't even take into account that Cifka is going to get another draw step and everything else. So
the 2 cats are going to come in, but Cifka doesn't want to trade off the Valky here for a shark token. But it looks like Sperling's in the market to trade, maintain his life total, and get a card in hand. What did he hit? A Forest. Not great. And the duress is going to take away the Omen of the Sea. And Sperling says, okay, nice, you got it. Take 6 down to 8.
Yep, I'm doing the math right along with you.
Right, and then he has Yorion to follow up if he'd like. He does not have lethal damage on the battlefield, so I'm assuming he's interested in saying, all right, let's do this. I am curious about the graveyard count, though, for that Pelucranos Unchained, because that could be a game changer for Sperling.
Yeah, it's that and Cling to Dust, right? Because you could cling something, maybe gain some life, and keep your head above water that way. So I think it is appropriate to put this on the battlefield. Sperling's mana. GG. Okay, so Emergent Ultimate was fine there. Gonna blink out. Gonna blink out to Bolt to just take it again, but also just get some info, I guess.
Yep.
That's
And a land.
That's not Emergent Ultimatum, folks.
Not even close. Now, the question is a card like Pelukrinos good enough here? He's facing down 10 damage. The Cling would actually keep him alive.
I guess the play, it could be get Pelukrinos back if there's enough cards. There's also grab Big Bird and play Big Bird. Blink Omen, Blink Wolfalo Haven. But there's enough cards here with Pelukrinos.
That's interesting. Okay. But he's going to go for Pelukrinos. Does he have mana up to activate it? He does. So that's why. He can use this to snipe Yorion right here and right now. And leftover, an 8/8 still. So he's not messing around. Ooh, there's a good sweat. Omen of the Sea off the top, though, for Cifka.
Well, removal spell ends it there, bud.
Let's see if he can hit it.
No, I'm sure I'm wrong. Brings him to 2. Removal spell does not end it.
All right, he didn't hit one anyway. Bottom. Love to see something expensive. Oh, but it's a forest off the top. All is not lost here. He can chip in for a couple, and he gets the scry from the Omen, but it's not going to be this turn. Sperling would kill for an Omen of the Sea off the top of the library here.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So Sperling has access to 9 mana. 10 if you count the land in his hand. So what we might see on Sperling's side, again, assuming all the mana cooperates, is we might see him upkeep, sacrifice his Omen of the Sea. That'll bring him down to access to 6 mana, and then his land for the turn will be mana 7. Naturally, I am talking about Emergent Ultimatum is something that he could draw and set up with the Omen of the Sea, perhaps.
Nice. I like that. This is assuming he takes 2 damage here from the 2 birds down to 6. So let's see if Sperling goes for that line.
Does not.
No, he just draws his card for the turn. He must be thinking of Yorion then. Yeah, he must want the Omen on the battlefield so that he can cast Yorion and get the card off it that way.
There is another play here. Let's see.
What do you see?
Because he does have a red Triome, he does have the ability to fight to Bolt.
To fight Valky, get back Valky, cast to Bolt.
Yeah, that's an option.
Yeah, that's a Ketria Triome. He does have red.
Yeah, he's just added Yorion to his hand, so we might just see him do that and play Big Bird and do some blinking. Other options here for Mattis, he could just pass like this with Pelukrinos up and say, none of your ground creatures in attack, and I can start to pick off some of your flyers. Hello!
Uh-oh, there's Emergent Ultimatum off of the scry. I said it wasn't going to be last turn. It can be this turn, though, for Cifka, and the shields are down. Sperling has to know that this is terrible news once it went on top of the library. I mean, what is he keeping at this point that doesn't win him the game or give him a nearly insurmountable advantage?
Well, now if you're Cifka,
he actually needs another green source. He has to play the forest to cast it.
Oh, yeah, right? Because of those mana issues that he was having. Okay, so there's that. All right, so now we saw Matt cast this in game 1, right? Didn't seem like the best one ever. He won game 1, so that's water under the bridge. Who cares? But now this is a spot where we can really see him and Cifka really gas it up here with like this, Professor Onyx, something. Vorniclex is still in his deck, Marshall. I mean, there's a lot of options here.
Yeah, go big here, Stan, and you probably earn the game with this very play. Right now he's at 6 facing down. Yeah, that should just do it, right? Because I shouldn't say that, but it basically should. Because if he gets Professor Onyx and that gets Pelukrinos out of here and then it's lethal. And if he doesn't and he has Alrund's Epiphany, then that's also lethal, right? It's 2 in the air, make 2 birds, 4 in the air, that's 6. How many can Sperling kill? That's the question, right? Because he does have all of his mana up and Pelukrinos at the ready. If he can just snipe all the birds, then it isn't an automatic win with the Alrund's Epiphany. It looks like he went for Epiphany, Professor Onyx, and Behold the Multiverse. So he's saying, okay, look, you're going to be able to wipe out my board, but if I get the Behold, then I have action to keep things rolling forward, going forward.
Interesting. Okay.
So he gave him Professor Onyx and Behold.
Well, yep.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, from Sperling's perspective, Professor Onyx is annoying and it does kill Pelucranos, but he gets to basically wipe the board first. Behold's going to find a couple of spells here, Shark Typhoon and a Cultivate. And let's see if Stanislav just forces the issue with the minus on Professor Onyx here. Looks like 2 activations in the bank here for Sperling.
That's what it looks like, yeah.
So he could kill Valky, kill a bird, and then he could even cast his own Tybalt on his turn. That's not bad.
That doesn't seem that bad, no.
Wow, this has been another sweet game. Cifka's going for it, though. He says, all right, let's get this Pelucranos out of here and force the issue. Now Sperling has to respond.
Yeah, let's get to
kill Valky.
Yep, that's what let's get to responding then. So that's 1.
And then he can take out the 2/2, which just leaves him with the most life total available, since he's not blocking anything anyway.
Okay.
And that's pretty much it for Cifka. He gets a chip in for 2 down to 4, but Sperling has access. Ooh, there's Disdainful Stroke too. Nice little insurance plan, but he can cast Tybalt here.
All right. What's it look like when we go down this rabbit hole? Jeez.
Yeah, because the thing that he's worried about here, right, is if Professor Onyx and the 2 birds are on the battlefield, any spell on the stack is a drain plus the 2 in the air. So he can't have that happen. I mean, it's just too likely after the resolution of a card draw spell that Stan has some way to trigger Professor Onyx at least once.
I'm not even I guess my concern is I'm not sure that Valky God of Lies is even that good right now.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't exile Professor Onyx.
Right.
It's artifact or creature. So I think I think this might be better. It's just cast Big Bird, blink out the Omen and the Wolf Willow Haven. You can put the Haven on something else, obviously. But I think this might be the best that you can do this turn. And then you can play Pelucranos. You get to put the Wolf Willow Haven on the untapped land, but you don't get to fight anything.
2. So this means, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So this should be enough then, right? It's Magecraft. No, it's Shark Typhoons. Oh, that's interesting. So the Cultivate will trigger, but the Shark Typhoon won't. So Stan does need to find another spell.
Yeah, and I like Stan cycling here and not overvaluing this Shark Typhoon. I think his thought process right now is, if I draw a spell, I can win the game, right?
Yep.
I Cultivate, and sure, it can cost 7.
That actually works, right? As long as he has a land he can get, he can pay 3, have a land, and then pay 7, and he can go drain you, and win the game.
Yeah, that should be, to the best of my knowledge, good enough. Even though it is color intensive. Oh, nope.
Just puts it on the stack, and it should be good enough.
Yeah, I like you. I thought briefly there. I was like, does the spell have to resolve? But it says when you cast or copy for Magecraft.
That's right. Instant or sorcery, and that's, of course, Omen of the Sea doesn't count for that. You know, these Yorian builds tend to try to put their cards into permanence when they can, but there it is, drain number 1. He just can get some blue mana here, play the land, and put Seagate Restoration on the stack, and game number 2 is going to go to Stanislav Cifka, evening things up and forcing a game number 3. Wow, what another crazy close game between these two. This mirror has been absurd.
These are some games in front of us here, boss. And we get to the most important one for both of these players, because if Cifka wins this game, it's over. He's headed to Worlds. And if Sperling wins this game, we step out of the booth. The Amazonian and Eduardo step back in for game 3 for it all.
That's right.
Jeez.
Boy, and they are going at it here, too. None of these games have been easy from either player's perspective. And Sperling just had to give the nod there and say, yep, you pieced it all together. He tried his best to keep his life total as high as possible, but we saw that static ability on Professor Onyx very powerful that game.
Really good.
Yeah. All right, underway here in game number 3 of our second match. If you're just joining us, we're in kind of extra turns here. We're doing a best 2 out of 3 matches on a tie break between Matt Sperling and Stanislav Cifka to see who gets to go to Worlds. Yeah, that's happening right now. If you've tuned in, you came in at just the right time because this could decide it.
We are in overtime.
That's right. Something to keep in mind as well, although not quite at the moment, but perhaps down the line if this game is similar to the prior two. Cifka's clock is at 8 minutes.
Ooh, wow.
That was aggro.
Yeah.
Really aggressive there from Cifka. Sperling went for Omen of the Sea, and Cifka used Dispute on it here on turn 2. You don't see that very often.
All right, I'm just gonna earmark that play right now. That's because this is a turn in which, by the way, Cifka has no lands in his hand. He could have played his own Omen of the Sea on Sperling's end step to smooth things out a little bit, maybe find a black source for a duress, so on and so forth. So I'm just gonna earmark that turn. That's also one less dispute that he has.
Land off the top, but it is tapped. And it looks like Sperling's going to take the play a land, put Yorion in my hand line of play here. He has land drops, though. He's not missing those. They are tapped. He finds a scry land, and he just drew a Triome. Ooh, Eureka Moment. That's a nice one.
Yeah, I don't see that card that much. Pretty cool card, though.
And now we're going to see Elspeth's Nightmare. This is next level stuff here from our players. Nightmare into an empty board, trying to set up duress to take away some way to interact or perhaps an ultimatum from his opponent. And now we're going to see Omen of the Sea from Cifka. And he just needs land, so it looks like he's content to put the cards on the bottom. He's flirting with the idea of keeping the Omen of the Sea on the top, but he says, well, if I just need to hit a land drop, this will get me deeper towards it. But boy, he'd really like to just peel one.
All right, bottom, peel a card, find a cultivate.
Okay, and there's a land as well.
Okay, well.
About as well as you could hope for.
That is true.
Now you can get a black mana source here as well. And this gets interesting because does he just binding to protect his hand by killing the Elspeth's Nightmare of all things?
Yeah,
that's what he's doing. Oh boy, this is getting very next level here. And I think we're going to see binding your binding. Both players effectively fighting each other for card advantage and mana advantage. And we see the haymakers going back and forth in ways that we don't normally see. Ooh, there's Emergent Ultimatum, though, off the top for Stan. Now, it's not quite time for that yet, but with double duress in hand, you got to figure he can protect it.
You got to believe that to be true. I'm with you on that. So I like cultivating here, get a couple of lands. Make sure you're getting lands that make sense to resolve Emergent Ultimatum now that you have it. Though that should always be on your mind when you're playing a strategy like this, and I'm sure it is always on Matt and Stanislav's mind. So that's why you might see him take a moment to figure out how to cultivate. He's going to put one of these onto the battlefield, tapped. Okay, it's going to be the forest, swamp to the grip, which means we could see duress this turn.
That's right. He also has the option to leave up Disdainful Stroke. He knows about Yorion in hand. And he may assume that Sperling's on the plan of just casting it. But no, he's going to go for the duress play, and then he has a backup if he'd like. A few good options here. All of them digging through the library for his opponent, Matt Sperling.
Time is starting to become a factor for both these players, Marshall, as you did mention. Cifka is underneath 6 minutes.
Yeah, it looks like Sperling. I don't see his clock up at all, so he's cruising. But this is definitely a concern. Now, as it stands, if that Emergent Ultimatum goes off, it probably makes it a moot point, and probably Stan Cifka's going to Worlds. If it doesn't, and by the way, it won't, because there's a duress, then that could be a real problem. We've seen how long these games can go. They can get very grindy if there's no Emergent Ultimatums resolved. This is huge for Sperling, finding this duress.
Absolutely is.
He needed that right now. As we can see, a top deck untapped land for Cifka could have given him access to the Emergent Ultimatum, though that's not guaranteed by any stretch. Seagate Restoration, nope. That's not in range yet, so it's pay for Yorion, go. This is about the best case here for Sperling.
Probably not unhappy with that series of events. So now we're going to cycle Shark Typhoon, make a little baby shark. Seagate Restorations for everyone.
Ooh, and there's Emergent Ultimatum. Disdainful Stroke in hand for Cifka. Not quite enough mana yet for Sperling to actually fire it off.
Oh, he could play Seagate just face up.
Yeah. Does he have black, green, 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 black? Oh, yeah, that is actually plenty.
He could let it rip. I don't think he's gonna, but he could.
Okay.
Well, he's definitely not going to because he knows about the Disdainful Stroke in hand. So this Urine is a test spell.
That's right. He says, all right, let's get that Disdainful. Oh, it resolves. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Hey, that's 6 power in the air.
So what this means, what this looks like to me here, Marshall, is just that resolves. That's fine. I have Binding the Old Gods to take care of your 4/5, and I still have Disdainful Stroke up to take care of a potential Emergent Ultimatum that we know is not potential. It is very much there.
Right. So there we go. Binding takes out the big bird, land into play for the turn, pass the turn back. Right now, Sperling's ahead, but only by a little bit. He just has that shark chipping away. But the threat of Emergent Ultimatum in hand is big. And frankly, it gets kind of interesting because if there's a land for Sperling next turn, let's say he goes for Emergent Ultimatum here, right? He just really needs to hit a land drop to get to 7 because if he can try to cast both of his 7s and one of them resolves, it could put him in a good spot too.
Thought we might see Matt cast that Elspeth's Nightmare that turn, but I guess he can't do that because if he does, then Urine comes down, blinks Binding the Old Gods, takes care of the Elspeth's Nightmare, so he has to let all of this stuff happen first before you can consider the Elspeth's Nightmare play of not for Chapter 1, of course, but for Chapter 2. So now that Urine is here, let the blinking happen. Yeah, it's a little bit painful. Binding's going to come in, take care of the shark. Omen's going to come in, let you scry to and then peel a card, but that's the only way to actually open up the door here for Elspeth's Nightmare.
There's a Fabled Passage for Stan back over, and it's Wolf Willow Haven. Clock is approaching 4 minutes now for Cifka, something that we're keeping a close eye on. If his clock goes to 0, he loses.
Yep.
As we see Sperling cross the 8-minute mark, doesn't look like it's going to be an issue for him. Now he's going to run out Elspeth's Nightmare into no targets for it. We're going to see Omen of the Sea find, Cultivate, and Binding. Is Binding good enough here for Stan? He doesn't really have the time to sit here and think about it, so he's just going to take it.
Well, I would say that Binding is good enough insofar as it kills Elspeth's Nightmare, and Elspeth's Nightmare, again, is trying to clear the path for this Emergent Ultimatum. So, okay. I was like, are you actually really going to cast that Seagate Restoration? That'd be wild.
Yeah, you can see the temptation in doing so, but I think that being patient here, effectively killing a duress, is the better line. Sperling finds a land off the top, and it looks like he's just going to go for Seagate Restoration here. This is a must counter, right? I mean, it draws him a few cards, and there's Disdainful Stroke for it. And that means that Seagate Restoration on the other side could resolve.
So interesting. Is it a must counter? I don't know. But oh, wow.
Oh, my God. Duress off the top for Stan Cifka. Perfection for him. Now he has enough mana to just go for Restoration to get max cards and then also Duress. And he needs to just keep playing here because his clock is getting so low. But look at that reload. Well, not the best. He did find another Omen.
And that was huge. And now
he's trying to play clean here. He's going to crack his Fabled Passage before going for the Omen of the Sea. But each of these actions does cost him time and is worth considering.
It does. And the clock is a very real thing. We're at under 3 minutes now, Marshall.
That's right. Does he just need Vorinclex here? Is it just let's start beating down?
I mean, we might get in decision mode now where it's just kind of like, I gotta make decisions I wouldn't normally make. Like, I think there might be some games where he actually just takes Duress and puts Vorinclex in the bottom, but I think we're in the territory of, I gotta do some stuff I wouldn't normally do.
Need a big top deck here for Sperling. He's under big time pressure now. Let's see if he can find something. He's going to crack Fabled Passage on his upkeep, try to thin out a card from his 80-card deck, and see if he can't hit lightning in a bottle here. He wants something that costs 6, 7 mana.
Huge turn. That ain't it.
He finds the land. Disappointment for Sperling. Now, he's not dead on board, right? That's 10. He's at 12.
Yep.
Are we going to see this Omen cracked? Yes. A little over 2.5 minutes for Cifka. Now he can take a minute and breathe because he He really needs to stick the landing here to get these last few turns done. Oh, there's Alrund's Epiphany. So that's good for 4 plus another 2 plus another 4. Still not quite.
Well, so what I think happens here, right, is you just see an attack here for 4, put you to 8, play Epiphany, untap, play my Vorinclex, attack for lethal.
Incredible stuff from Stanislav Cifka. Boy, that duress last turn was super clutch. And now he has set up the victory. Down to 8 goes Sperling. Another turn, 6/6 haster. Plus the 2 creatures on board, or excuse me, the 3 creatures on board is plenty enough against a land, and Cifka gets the job done. Welcome to Worlds, Stanislav Cifka. Fantastic job. Sperling, not out of it. He still gets to come back to the last league weekend to fight, but as it stands, it's all Stanislav Cifka here in our playoff. Congratulations to him. What a win.
Unbelievable match of magic.